Hello, Tungsten Miner here. I'm going to continue my series on immersive engineering today. Last time we had talked about some of the more esoteric power systems, fluid systems, item movement, and item storage. And so let's jump in today with some of the big heavy machinery. Next up, let's talk about steel production. Here I have in front of me a stack of blast bricks, 3 by 3, and if I right click on them, it's going to turn it into a multi-block blast furnace. Now, the blast furnace works by taking iron and some kind of fuel. Coal coke is a good one because it lasts a long time. And I can toss them in here and it's immediately going to start blast furnacing, I guess, heating up this iron ingot and infusing it with carbon to turn it into steel. As you can see, this is not a fast process. The other thing is that you can't automate this process. Note that I have no conveyor belts or anything anywhere around this because they won't connect. And that's kind of deliberate in that they want this to be the low-end version of steel production, which of course means they provided a high-end version of steel production. If you take your blast bricks and you craft them together with some steel, so let's take a look at blast bricks just to get an idea of what we're dealing with here. Yep, there's that guy. And the recipe for this is some blaze powder with brick and nether brick. So obviously you're making a trip to the nether to be able to form these things. That gets you 2 blast bricks. If you then take those and craft them together with a steel plate, which is made by taking a steel ingot and whacking it with a hammer, you wind up with this reinforced blast brick. So you can basically tear down your earlier blast furnace and make a new blast furnace with the first 27 chunks of steel that you make for yourself. Right click with your engineer's hammer right in the center and you get a blast furnace. And this is the advanced version. So it actually has the same interface as this guy does. So let me grab some of this stuff here. You'll notice the first of the steel ingots has been produced along with the first piece of slag. Now, slag is a byproduct of making any kind of steel. And really the only thing you can do with it is make concrete out of it. So a little bit of clay, water, gravel, and your slag will get you 12 pieces of concrete. Concrete can be made in other ways. It's just that this is the more efficient way. So it doesn't require as much sand. You can use this slag instead. But it's basically a waste product. Over here, though, we have our more advanced blast furnace. And actually, let me pull those out because this guy can be automated. And what I've got going on here, I'll walk through all the pieces, is I've got some coke and iron. I've got some power. I'm using my wood scaffolding to give me a way to support my conveyor belts. I've got a dropping conveyor belt, which is going to drop the coke and the iron into the blast furnace from the top. And then from the front, I'm going to have my output get shot out. So any steel that this produces is going to come out the front. And any slag that this produces is going to get shot out the back. And so I'll collect it up in this chest here. So all I need to do to automate steel production is provide some fuel and some iron. Whoops. With NEI, if you do that, it actually just deletes the items. Yeah, let's do it this way. So we'll say some iron, throw those on the conveyor, and some fuel, throw a bunch of that on the conveyor. And that's going to find its way up and eventually drop right into the blast furnace, which is now going to start operating. Oh, looks like you can't put iron ore in there directly. You have to put in iron ingots. Fine, I can get myself some iron ingots. Jeez. All right, yeah, there we go. Iron ingots. All right, once I did that, you can see these guys, these blast furnace preheaters come on. What they do is they increase the temperature inside the blast furnace in order to make the process go faster. So you can see, even after a very short time, we're already just about done making our first ingot. And there it goes, it gets spit out the front. So having two of these things is really great for speed, but of course, in order to get the speed, you need to provide power to run them. So these preheaters, not too complicated. Get yourself some sheet metal blocks, which is just iron plates, which have been flattened with a hammer. You need 4 of them. You get 4 sheet metal blocks. So 1 sheet metal block per ingot, basically. Some fluid pipe and an external heater. The external heater being copper, iron, and a copper wire coil. And that gets you a much, much faster and automatable version of the blast furnace. There's a lot of things that need steel in this mod, so this is an investment you're probably going to want to make pretty early on in the game, because otherwise you're going to be spending a lot of time babysitting your blast furnace. Next up, I thought I'd talk about some of the hand tools that Immersive Engineering adds, and there's actually a couple of these. So the first one is this pistol, and you can see here it is lying on this engineer's workbench. And the engineer's workbench is kind of a specialized sort of crafting table that Immersive Engineering adds. All right, the recipe is just some treated wood slabs, treated wood fence, and a crafting table. And that gets you this guy. When you right-click on it, you have a place to put whatever it is that you want to do engineering on, so my revolver in this case. And depending upon what you put in there, you'll get a bunch of other slots. So in this case, the pistol can accept up to 2 upgrades and a shader. So let's talk about these different things. First, let's go through some of the upgrades. There are 4 upgrades that the pistol can accept, or 3 rather. The extended magazine, so you can have more ammunition. The electron tube, which makes it do shock damage in addition to its regular damage. And the bayonet, which adds more melee damage. And you can install these things by, say, adding them on here, and as you can see, it alters the appearance of the revolver itself. So now my revolver looks a bit different. What I now need to do is add some ammunition. So let me grab, say, some Castle cartridges and drop those over here. And to load the revolver, you shift right-click, and it opens up this interface. So now I'm just going to drag my bullets in, and now my revolver is loaded, and I can take aim at my target and very slowly fire. Now it's auto reloading for me because I'm in creative. If I were not in creative, life would not be so easy for me. Now I've got a bunch of empty casings as a result, so I can shift right click and just grab all those empty casings out and turn these back into bullets. Bullets are formed likewise on the crafting table here, so I can take my common projectiles blueprint, throw that up here, and now I've got my different kinds of bullets I can produce. So these Castle cartridges require empty casings, which I've got here, and gunpowder and lead nuggets. So let me give myself some gunpowder and some lead nuggets. And toss those in the inventory here. And now that I've got enough materials, it highlights this guy saying, oh yeah, you can produce those, and I can just grab them straight off the table. And again, being in creative, it's refilled these for me. If I were not in creative, it wouldn't do that. And now I can reload my gun. Let me take back my materials here and take back my blueprint, and I can drop my revolver. And if I want, I can take off the extended magazine and put on the amplifier tubes instead. And now you can see the tubes on the side of the gun there. And if I fill this up with cartridges, let me actually change so that you can kind of see what really goes on here. Now, unfortunately, this is not an actual creature, just a test dummy, but you get the idea. And now my gun is basically empty. I can right-click all I want and nothing happens. I can try and stab my target here, but I don't even have the bayonet. Oh, I do have the bayonet installed. So it serves as a fairly weak melee weapon, in addition to a pretty decent ranged weapon. Oh yeah, so you can see the tubes and the bayonet on there. Now there's a whole bunch of different kinds of bullets. Some of them can be produced with this common projectiles template, and some of them can be produced with the specialized projectiles template. Both of these blueprints are found in chests for villagers or can be traded with villagers. Immersive Engineering adds a new kind of house and villagers to go along with it so that you can trade for certain things. Let's talk about these shaders. So shaders are basically decorations that you can add to a whole bunch of different things. So minecarts, balloons, revolvers, and some of the other equipment. And you can see it's added kind of a different color palette to this thing. If I take this one off and put that one on instead, you can see it's changed yet again. And if I take the shader off completely, you get the natural look. So shaders are a way to just decorate anything that you happen to have. Finally, this speed loader, I can take my bullets, put it in the speed loader, and now the speed loader itself is full. And if I grab back my pistol here, my pistol is now empty, but having the speed loader available means that I just right-click once and it reloads the gun from the speed loader. And of course I can have as many of these speed loaders as I want. So now it's completely full. I can fire off all my ammunition, but now I don't have a full speed loader and therefore it doesn't auto-reload. And if I want to reload, I have to do it the old-fashioned way. So these casings are just made from copper ingots, and you get 3 each. So it's the kind of thing where you make as many casings as you want to carry ammo around, and then you can just use them and reuse them and reuse them as you see fit. So notice I'm not actually firing anything because it's only that top chamber which actually fires, and you have to have a bullet that rotates around. So if you have a bunch of different types of bullets, you can load your gun with the different ones and just be a little careful about how you do that. So that's kind of it for the revolver. Okay, let's talk about diesel. Now, Immersive Engineering is very big on big heavy machinery, and as you might expect, it deals with producing the fuel for these big heavy machines with more big heavy machines. And the power production we've talked about so far is all on the fairly small scale. So what we're looking at here is a set of machines that allows you to start for the first time producing some really substantial amount of power on demand. Yeah, the lightning rod doesn't really count. So let me clear out some things here. Over here we have the nascent form of an industrial squeezer, and although you can't see it, the center block there is also a light engineering block, so there's just a ring of industrial squeezers here. And if I right click on the middle of it, you can see it gives me an interface where it can squeeze anything. Not anything. It can squeeze a lot of things. So I can squeeze coke dust and get this graphite dust, which we'll talk about way at the end, and that will be useful. Seeds you can squeeze and get plant oil, and that's basically true for pretty much any kind of seeds that you have. I happen to have forestry installed, so I can squeeze honey drops and get honey out of them, so it works a lot like the squeezer from that mod. And that's kind of it. So mostly you want the plant oil, because the plant oil, in combination with what you get out of the fermenter, so I right-click him the same way, he's basically the same ring, I can toss more or less a variety of different sorts of vegetable products that have sugars in them into here, and that's going to produce ethanol. So I take my ethanol and I take my plant oil, and that all goes into a refinery. So right here we've got some steel scaffolding, light engineering blocks around the other. We've got some heavy engineering blocks on the underside there, and one heavy engineering block on this side. Right click, and here we go. We've got our refinery. So this is a fairly complex piece of machinery, but in reality, it's not that complicated because it's going to accept plant oil on one side, it's going to accept ethanol on the other side, and then it's just going to take power and convert the plant oil and ethanol into diesel. So let's get this process started a little bit. Oh, let me grab some seeds, and we're going to toss them into here. And right away, it's starting to make plant oil. And as soon as it makes a little bit of plant oil, it's going to get pushed out through this fluid pipe and dropped into the refinery itself. And so this is going to slowly fill up with plant oil. If I come over here and do something similar with wheat, I can toss that over there, and it's going to start producing ethanol a little bit at a time, and that's going to get pumped back over here. And this thing is now going to start using the plant oil and the ethanol together to produce diesel. And every little bit of diesel that it produces is again going to get pumped out and dropped into this tank here. And we can see there's a little bit accumulating now, and it's going to keep going further and further. If I want to stop this process for whatever reason, I can just provide a redstone signal to this corner block here, and that's going to keep it from continuing to produce diesel. It's just going to allow the ethanol and the plant oil to accumulate. So I'm just going to let that carry on. All of this diesel then is going to actually get used in a couple of different places in the game, but the first one we're going to talk about is used for this diesel generator. So I click on this center block, right click there, and right away this thing is provided with diesel power because I've got a redstone signal to the bottom of my tank here, so it's pumping the diesel through into one of the two bottom corners. You can see the other one. That could also be a diesel input. And there is no interface to this thing. It's just a big multi-block structure that's radiator blocks and heavy engineering blocks and generator blocks. And it just goes to town. And it generates 4,096 RF per tick when it's running and consumes a pretty prodigious amount of diesel. It can have 3 leads coming off. Of course, with a high voltage wire, the high voltage connector can transfer all that power at once. So you don't actually need 3. But if you wanted to use 3 medium voltage ones, you could, for example. And I've got that coming over here to fill up this box. Now that it's full, though, the engine is smart enough to realize it doesn't need to run at the moment. And so it's turned itself off. No more smoke, no more fan running, no more noise. I can also plop a lever right there, and if I provide a redstone signal, it'll turn off the diesel engine and keep it off. So over here, let's see. Yep, that's all empty because we've been producing diesel fuel. We've probably used up all the plant matter that I tossed in here and all the seeds that I tossed in there, and we've processed all of that. So now we've produced as much diesel as we're going to. And the tank on this guy is full, and the energy capacitor is full. So now we've completed our loop here. So if you've got the means to produce the plant matter, this is a really great way to produce quite a lot of power very rapidly. This diesel generator is really powerful, especially compared to windmills and water mills and things. Definitely worth looking into, but it is very, very expensive. You need a lot of blocks. So let's take a look here. Power, diesel generator. You need all of this stuff. So that's a lot. The heavy engineering blocks especially are pretty darn expensive. Let me just demonstrate. We want heavy engineering blocks. And the recipe for those guys is lots of steel, steel mechanical components, which is even more steel, pistons, which is more iron, and you need a fair few of these things, right? The radiators also steel, generator blocks, more copper and steel. So this is going to be a lot of iron required. So yeah, make sure you're ready for that. And of course, all the rest of this stuff also requires a lot of iron. The tank requires a lot of iron. All of these guys require a lot of iron. So this is definitely not a small investment, but it does get you quite a lot of power. And I think I will stop there for this time. We have talked about blast furnaces and automating blast furnaces with the advanced blast furnace. A little bit about some of the tools, the very first one being the Revolver and the engineering workbench and all the stuff that goes into that. And then finally, the process of creating diesel from plant oil and ethanol, refining it into diesel power using the refinery, a little bit of fluid storage, and then finally the diesel engine, which can produce as much as a high voltage wire can take. Next time, we will jump back in with some more of the smaller hand tools and more of the big machines. So if you like this video, hit the like button. If you want to know when that next one's ready, hit subscribe, and I will talk to you later.